Towards the end of last week, House Speaker Mike Johnson sent Congress home for summer break, but before heading home, House Democrats held a press conference. First to speak, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who spent his time attacking Republicans for the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, stripping health care coverage from millions and food from the most vulnerable in America. Here's how the New York Times described what happened next. Quote, he ceded the lectern to Representative Katherine Clark of Massachusetts, the number 2 Democrat, who made a jarring pivot to a different topic.
Instead of standing up for kids, for families, instead of standing on the side of transparency and accountability, Republicans are running away, all to avoid the release of the Epstein client list, all to cover up for pedophiles.
We're joined now live at the library desk by Congresswoman Katherine Clark, representing the 5th Congressional District. As I said, she's a Democratic whip, which means she's the number 2 Democrat in the House. Congresswoman, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, nice to be back.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in, Congresswoman. So we just heard you talk about Jeffrey Epstein. Obviously, this is not a calm down. It's been going. This is the third week of, at least the third week of talking about this, dividing some in the president's party and maybe hurting the president. Do you think it's helping the Democrats?
You know, it was interesting. The New York Times said it was a jarring change of topics, but the whole thing is jarring. You know, this is something that Trump has fostered, this conspiracy theory, has said he was going to release these files. But there is a theme to what Donald Trump does, and that is protect the powerful and the elite and himself. And that is what we are seeing once again, whether it's the big ugly law or whether it is, you know, going back and betraying his promise to release these files. Who is he protecting, and why are they covering up? And so this isn't a matter of do Democrats benefit by this. It is very much a reflection of his obsession with protecting the elites, whether it's his tax bill and cutting Medicaid and food programs and veterans benefits and public schools to give the very wealthy a tax break they don't need and won't notice, or whether it's going back on his promise to release what's in the Epstein files.
You know what the Republicans say, that why didn't Joe Biden release the files?
Well, listen, back in 2019, in the very first Trump administration, where he put Secretary Acosta in place as the Secretary of Labor, who was the very person who gave a sweetheart deal to Jeffrey Epstein. I certainly raised that.
As the U.S. attorney down in there.
As the U.S. attorney. I mean, this was an incredible, with a 50-page indictment, over 30 minor children involved, and he got jail time where 6 days out of the week, he had work release, got picked up by a driver, and taken out of jail to go live his life. And that person was put in charge of the human trafficking department that's run out of the labor and had an 80% cut to it. And so we asked a lot of questions of him, and it actually led to him resigning. But this has been an ongoing theme, but it's about transparency. And it's about betrayal of the promises that Donald Trump made. And the fundamental one was to reduce cost of living, which he has done just the opposite.
I want to get to the broken promises, at least according to you. But before we do, you say, who is he protecting? My experience, arm's length with Trump, is he really cares about nobody but himself. I'm not saying his supporters he won't give tax breaks to. The conclusion I think both of us reach is the only reason he's not releasing these is because he is implicated in some fashion, not just mentioned in the Epstein files, as his Attorney General told him in May, even though he denies that he was told. Do you share that perception that he's protecting himself?
Yeah, I have no idea what's in those files. I really don't. But it does seem to be the way that he operates. It is all about enriching himself, protecting himself, protecting his image. And so this is, you know, part of what we saw from the very first days of his presidency, the very first day when he was inaugurated. And I sat on that stage and watched the richest people in the world gather in the front row, and everything has been aimed towards them, enriching Donald Trump himself and enriching those who already have great wealth, full stop. And this is just part of that pattern.
You know, Katherine Clark, I was really heartened by the fact that every poll I saw on the big, beautiful bill, or as you call it, the big, ugly law, showed 2-1 the American people were against it. And particularly happy because Marjorie talks all the time correctly about how so much of the electorate is Fox News obsessed. They don't even hear stories about this. So I naturally concluded that if you oppose the signature piece of legislation by 2-1 of the Republican, you're obviously ready to cast all those people aside. But you've seen the Wall Street Journal poll, worst numbers for the Democratic Party in 35 years, even more troubling. On all the issues where they say Trump is doing a horrible job, including deportation, immigration, they still prefer the Republicans by significant margins. What's wrong with this picture? How did you get into the mess that you and your fellow Democrats have found yourself in?
Listen, you know, we're seeing those polls. We're also seeing Donald Trump's economic numbers, which has been really his strength, along with immigration. But on the economy, he's in a free fall. And so we're not saying, you know, everything looks rosy for Democrats, but that we've got work to do. And we have to make that connection. Go to where people are, listen to them, and explain exactly what this bill does to them and their families and their communities.
But the point I was trying to make, I would argue the Democrats appear to be in free fall too, to use your term. The American people seem to know how bad it is. Maybe not every detail, by evidenced by that poll I mentioned. So why is none of that accruing to the party that has been relentlessly criticizing? Is it maybe because they don't think the Democrats have a better idea? All they do is criticize what they deem to be inappropriate, bad ideas from Donald Trump?
Yeah, and that's exactly why this August we are going out with our affirmative message and having the conversation with the American people. We will do the high contrast with Donald Trump and this bill, but also let them know that we firmly believe you deserve better. You deserve better than you're getting. They think the system's rigged against them because the system is rigged against them. So whether we're talking about lowering the costs of living, whether we are talking about ending corruption in government, we have to be specific and relay that vision. So we're going to do both. We're going to explain that bill and how bad it is, and we're not just going to do that in blue parts of the country. We're taking that to very Republican parts, rural parts of the country. I was just in rural Mississippi about a month ago, touring rural hospitals there, 300 of which are going to close as these Medicaid cuts kick in. A quarter of all nursing homes, starting and predominantly in rural America, will close. And, you know, having those conversations about what this means with people where they are. We're not going to win a lot of seats in Mississippi, but if we want to change people's minds about what Democrats are fighting for, we have to have those conversations across the country.
We're talking to Massachusetts Congresswoman Katherine Clark, number 2 Democrat in the House of Representatives.
But, you know, one of the things I think that does hurt Democrats a lot, I mean, a lot of us, including myself, disagree with almost everything Donald Trump has done, but he's done a lot of it. He hasn't done much in the economy, but he's gone after the most powerful law firms in the country, got a lot of them to capitulate. He's gone after the most powerful colleges and universities, got them to capitulate. Harvard may be about to capitulate too. He's gone after he got a pretty good deal with the tariffs that were much ridiculed. That's with Europe, with the 15%. The EU kind of bent in knee. They had this Project 2025 scoped out for years going into his presidency, and they are following through on whether it's Department of Justice or whatever it is. And the Democrats talk about things like childcare, but they don't do anything. It's been 40 years we're going to fix childcare. 40 years since my kids were little to fix childcare. And that's the sense is he gets stuff done, and the Democrats talk and don't achieve.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you're willing to put out illegal tariffs and you can get buy-in to it and you consider that getting stuff done, that's breaking the law and the Constitution. But, you know, we also have to remain vigilant in calling that out.
Yeah.
And what are these tariff deals? They're always big on headlines, very light on details. But you know who is going to pay are the American people. And it's going to start with increased prices at back to school. We're going to see it in clothes, we're going to see it in shoes, we're going to see it in electronics, and that is going to get worse as we go through the year. And the estimates from the Yale Budget Lab and other people who are tracking this is that we are of increases between 20 to 30% on clothes and shoes by next spring, by tariffs that have already been put in place. I'm hearing from small businesses throughout my district and throughout the country who feel like they are already over. They're just waiting to January because they had to make purchases for the holidays in the height of the tariff chaos. So we can't, like, getting stuff done. He is taking away so much from the American people when they are shouting at us, we are not making it. 60% of households right now, 60% cannot afford the basics for the family. Over 50%, almost 55% are saying we're going to have to cut back on our food budget to buy school supplies. Getting stuff done. And yes, we are seeing people bend the knee. Law firms, corporations, universities.
Are you worried about Harvard? What you read in the New York Times this morning?
You know, I'm worried about Harvard and all of the universities and the attacks on journalism and public radio.
Can you make a case in any situation that any major institution, law firm, university, media company, that any institution should ever cut a deal with Donald Trump?
You know, I certainly, in an ideal world, I wouldn't. But I also want Harvard and other institutions to continue the research that they're doing, not to lose every single lab to somewhere else. And here in Massachusetts, not only do they create that pipeline of breakthrough medical discoveries, it is a part of our economy. People don't move here for our low cost of housing or our phenomenal weather. They move here because we are the best in the world at taking research out of the lab and putting it into the marketplace. So there's a whole consideration. When we want people to hold the ground, we have to be there and support them against this administration.
You know, one of the things we hear from almost all the Democrats with whom we speak is we've got to be a big tent kind of thing. We have to enlarge, we have to be tolerant of people who don't agree with every dogmatic kind of thing. The most talked about young Democrat in America is Mamdani, who obviously is, as of the moment, the front runner to be the next mayor of New York City. And your leadership colleague, who obviously represents New York City, Hakeem Jeffries, has met with him but has failed to endorse him. Doesn't that send a message to young Democrats that you have to be a particular kind of Democrat to be allowed to be in this inner circle? I mean, doesn't that send the wrong message? Why not endorse him as fast as you can?
Well, listen, I can't speak to New York mayoral policies and endorsement, but I can tell you what his campaign says to me. He has been absolutely focused on cost of living, housing, transportation, groceries, and he did it in a very fresh way. He was out in neighborhoods, using video, using social media very skillfully, but delivering that message that I see that you feel you're not making it, and I'm going to do something about it. That is the Democratic message.
If he called you as the number 2 Democrat, Mamdani, and said, I'd like your endorsement, would you endorse him?
You know, I am not stepping into New York mayoral
so wait,
politics.
if he called you wouldn't endorse him?
I don't endorse mayors in my own district, but that's not the point. What I would say is I think you've run a great campaign because you are talking about the issues that matter to people. And that's the endorsement I give his campaign because I think he has touched on something. Can he do it all? Do I approve of everything he said in past posts? You know, no. But his message is the one that we have to have and the conversation we have to have with people in New York City and across this country. How are you going to make it? You deserve better than you're getting.
The thing I assume you're referring to without saying it is his comments about Israel. Is that what
Yeah,
you're referring? Okay,
yeah.
so we've talked a lot. We had the guy who wrote the piece from Brown University the other day, Omer Bertov, who wrote the piece, the headline of which from the time, I'm a genocide scholar, I know it when I see it. We have seen these starvation images that are just, and you have a pretty powerful tweet saying you're horrified by starvation in Gaza. And while a lot of criticism goes to Trump, who all of a sudden apparently got religion yesterday, even though he hasn't done anything, all he said it, Joe Biden was sending a lot of weaponry there too, which helped contribute to what are reported, admittedly, by the Palestinian authorities, 60,000 deaths. What's your prescription here, and what are the Democrats doing to make sure those people don't starve to death?
Yeah, listen, this is outrageous. This is absolutely horrifying what we are seeing, and we have to do everything possible. And if the Trump administration will work with us, and we certainly will implore them to, we have to get aid to these people. I have had discussions with the World Food Program, with others who know how to deliver this aid. It is a very dangerous place to deliver aid because starving, desperate people mob trucks, but they don't deserve to be shot when they're trying to get food for their family. We have to look at the Gaza Humanitarian Fund and understand what are the policies there? Who is funding this? How can we do better than having 4 delivery sites where people are getting routinely shot?
Should Democrats be more critical of Netanyahu and his
And
behavior?
should we be supplying military equipment to Israel?
I think that question is really about how do we use our leverage? Israel is an ally. They do receive incredible aid from us. So at this moment, we have to demand that they have answers for this. How do we securely get food to these people, and how do we do it quickly? I think we've seen some progress in the last few days, and we need far more. There are 2 million people there. We cannot airdrop our way out of this. We have to have safe passage for those trucks.
But should we be supplying them military weaponry while they're not doing it?
Well, let's use every leverage point that we have to quickly, jump to that. In a way, skips over the very real steps of what we need to do in the next few days. It's not like we have military defense equipment that is going to be withheld in the next days or weeks.
Yeah.
This is a humanitarian crisis that needs us to use our allyship and our deep friendship with Israel to say you have to do better. And we have to too as an administration. There are many aid groups who are just waiting to help. It is a complicated situation of delivery, and I understand that, but we cannot stand by and not do every single thing we can to try and make this better.
Congresswoman, we only have a minute or two left here. Marjorie mentioned Project 2025 before, and even if you like none of the elements, the brilliance of essentially constructing the whole agenda for Trump before he even took office, I think is unparalleled and brilliant. Horrible, but brilliant. Are the Democrats creating a Project 2027, a Project 2029? Are they trying to do exactly what he has done from his perspective so successfully?
Yes, and we have to. And listen, we sounded the alarm around Project 2025, and you saw it. You saw Trump convince people that that wasn't real and that we were making that up and that Democrats were being alarmists. He knew nothing about it. It has been the blueprint, and he put the people who wrote it in powerful positions, and they are enacting it. And a lot of it is illegal and unconstitutional, but that has not slowed the roll. So we also have to have not just the same rhetorical place for people, but actually have the policies and backup and a vision for what we will do when we get the gavels back in our hands.
30 seconds. How's your stress level? I mean, this is, we knew you when you were a lowly state legislator here. I'm serious. How's your stress level as a human?
It's not great. It's not great. But, on the other hand, I think it is easier in some ways to have the great privilege, and I do consider it a great privilege, to be in the House and to be in the arena every day and to see the fight that is going on across this country to resist this and to tell the American people it doesn't have to be this way. There is hope out there. We can envision something far better, and that's what Democrats are going to deliver.
Thanks for your time, Congresswoman. It's
Congresswoman,
really good to
thank
see
you
you.
very much for
Thank
taking
you
the
so
time.
much.